Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy this video, we invite those of you who haven't yet done so, to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification icon, to be notified when the next one is uploaded. We'd also like to urge those of you who haven't yet done so, to sign our online petition for an inquiry into the BBC and Channel 4's coverage of Lewis Hamilton and Abu Dhabi. We recently amended the petition to include Gary Lineker's sacking by the BBC. A link has been provided in the description. If you are on X, then please repost our tweet. Thank you. The mainstream F1 media have always tended to downplay or undermine Lewis Hamilton's legacy. For example, during the period of Mercedes' dominance, they fostered the notion that his successes were down to the car, even though he had strong competition from his teammates because Mercedes drivers were free to compete, and Ferrari also provided strong competition. However, Michael Schumacher's legacy, which was mainly forged during his time as the lead driver at a dominant Ferrari, were put down to him and his desire to win, which sometimes went beyond the pale. In the case of Max Verstappen, who as the lead driver for Red Bull, accrued a series of FIA-enabled successes during a period of Red Bull dominance, including the infamous robbery in Abu Dhabi, his success is attributed mainly to his alleged ability to master the tricky car that his teammates struggle to handle. But on reflection, you will find that the collective media approach is to downplay Hamilton achievements at all costs while inflating those of other drivers. The media routinely debate who is the greatest of all time between him and Schumacher, who both have 7 world titles. But Michael, who had a support driver, controversially won a title by deliberately crashing into his challenger, while Hamilton, whose teammates were free to race against him, lost 2 titles under highly controversial circumstances. In 2016, he was robbed by his own team favoring his teammate, and in 2021, he was robbed by the FIA with the tacit approval of Mercedes. So, when it comes to reviewing Hamilton's performance, one cannot rely on the fake stream media to be fair and accurate. However, with the passage of time, the truth emerges despite the best efforts of the media. In recent times, there's the now running theme of Max Verstappen's reckless driving, which somehow went unheralded when he was locking horns with Hamilton in 2021. Back then, the FIA and the fake stream media were quick to minimize, normalize, or gaslight whatever he did against Hamilton, but now suddenly, they are all going crazy over him driving recklessly against Lando Norris last season, and on at least 2 occasions out of the 9 Grands Prix so far this season. Once against championship leader Oscar Piastri in Saudi Arabia, when he was penalized after having to yield the first corner to avoid colliding with the Australian. The second time, he was penalized for deliberately driving into George in Spain. The media went crazy, and some of them without any sense of irony, blamed the FIA's failure to sanction him properly in 2021, when driving recklessly against Sir Lewis. The anti-Lewis bias has continued till date, but 9 races into his record-breaking debut Ferrari season, his legend is still growing, while those of his counterparts are diminishing, but you couldn't really tell that from the fake stream media coverage. So, in this video, we will be showing you how, using 3 other drivers as reference points. The first driver is his former Mercedes teammate George Russell. After a relatively nondescript Williams debut in 2019, George first gained public attention in 2020, when he missed out on his first points in F1, after making the highly embarrassing and horrendous mistake of crashing behind the safety car while on cold tires. Just over a month later, he recovered from that disaster to make a brilliant debut for Mercedes in Bahrain, where he replaced Sir Lewis, who had tested positive for COVID. In their final 3 seasons together in the new ground effect era where the Mercedes car was uncompetitive, Russell not only became the 3rd teammate to ever outscore Hamilton in a season, but he also went on to become the only one to have done it twice. To achieve this feat twice in 3 seasons definitely puts George in a class of his own, and the source of his outrageous opinion that if he had been driving for Mercedes during their dominant period, he'd arguably have 2 championships in his name. But here's the thing, A simple ChatGPT question shows that in 2022, when Russell outscored him marginally for the first time, Hamilton was the one mainly testing setups for the team. In 2024, when he sensationally announced his record-breaking transfer to Ferrari, we all know how Toto was flapping all over the place and sabotaging the GOAT. But here's the thing, if George truly believed his own hype, then he should be taking the matter up privately with his boss, who has publicly signaled his wish to replace him with Max Verstappen. Even in Spain, after Max had deliberately crashed into George, Toto was reserved in his criticism so he could keep open the possibility of bringing him to Mercedes. Perhaps, he failed to learn the lesson of McLaren's second driver, who tried to undermine the GOAT's legend but ended up embarrassing himself in front of a global audience. Lando Norris will never live down the viral moment when he reacted negatively because he had misinterpreted Sir Lewis's attempt to compliment him in the cool-down room after the 2024 Hungarian GP. Well, as we all know, McLaren's support driver has since learned that it takes more than having the fastest car to win a world title. As he has earned himself the envious record of losing the world title by the largest points margin ever, and without taking the battle to the final race of the season, while driving the fastest car. This season Lando's reputation has declined from a gassed-up title challenger and team leader, to a Gunnar-style bottler and support driver, who has as much chance of winning the world title as Arsenal have of winning a European or World Cup. However, since that viral moment last year, he has consistently expressed admiration and support for Sir Lewis, so it remains to be seen what will become of George, whose legacy is also declining as his boss continues to pursue Max openly. The third driver is of course, our one and only Max Verstappen, the most gifted driver ever in the history of Formula One, whom the FIA got off by gifting him the title they stole from Sir Lewis in 2021. They followed this despicable robbery with the corrupt oversight that allowed him and Red Bull to run away with 2 more titles and countless records, before pulling the plug in the middle of 2024, as Red Bull dropped to 3rd in the Constructors, while Max received his 4th in a row. As mentioned previously, despite the FIA-enabled dominance, Max was touted as the once-in-a-generation talent, but here's the thing, once the FIA pumped the brakes, he has been unraveling before our very eyes this season. But you couldn't tell that from the media coverage. This is the first time since the FIA-enabled new ground effect era, which was designed to undermine Sir Lewis and benefit Max, came into effect, that he has not been leading the World Championship. He has only been on the podium 4 times out of the 9 full races to date, and with only 2 victories he is currently lying in 3rd place on the table as the McLaren drivers are pulling away, and Red Bull are dropping down the constructors' table. After a stunning victory in the 3rd GP of the season in Japan, the home race for Red Bull's engine provider Honda, which belied the poor outing in the previous 2 races of the season, Max is on record as conceding his title defense just because of a poor qualifying session in the 4th GP in Bahrain. This is certainly not the stuff of champions. In the following race in Saudi Arabia, Max's Red Bull made a dramatic recovery to propel him to pole position, but he still lost the race, while driving what appeared to be the fastest car. This was where Oscar, who started behind him, overtook him going into the first corner. Unsurprisingly, angsty Max got reckless and incurred a penalty which ultimately cost him the race. Since then, the angsty Max that has been bubbling just under the surface blew up again in Spain. Max's legend is unraveling before our very eyes, but the mainstream F1 media are doing their best to play it down. This is the first time that Max will be in a title fight since 2021, the first time since the new ground effect season that he will have to come from behind to win a title. What do you think his chances are? The fake-stream media are struggling to defend him as public outrage is growing exponentially. After throwing a public tantrum post-Bahrain, they tried to gaslight people into thinking that he was relaxed about his F1 future, just before angsty Max came out in the first corner of the next race in Saudi Arabia. What are the chances that he will get angstier and more reckless as his season continues to unravel? In stark comparison, Sir Lewis in his debut Ferrari season is lying astern on the driver's table with his accomplished teammate, who has been with the team since 2016. In only his second GP, he won Ferrari's first-ever sprint race victory after setting a record-breaking pole position lap time. The team have obviously been struggling to live up to the blistering pace set by the GOAT, but as we tried to advise them previously, they need to take steps to ensure that a traitor or saboteur has not infiltrated their ranks to undermine Sir Lewis's debut. But what we do know is that if the fake stream media could have attributed the current performance drop to just Sir Lewis, they would be crowing about it already. Instead, there are as many questions about the team, the drivers, and the team principal, so we know that as per usual, the newest kid on the block, who requires time to acclimatize, will be judged harsher than the older ones, just because he is Sir Lewis. We remain confident that he will make the break soon and watch as the fake stream media rush to take away the credit. Forza Ferrari.